So my film proving with facts that the Boxster is more fun for the money than the 911 generated quite a bit of controversy. I've never seen as many comments in the history of my channel actually, so thank you to all those that have participated in that so far and maybe enjoyed that film. But there is a theme deriving from that thread that I thought needed a response, and in fact it came from one comment. Here it is in all its alpha male gloriousness. So very much to unpack about that comment, but ignoring the toxic masculinity of it, I think in one respect at least it really does speak to the games and notions that are going off in some or many of our heads when we buy a car. What happens if I get to the lights and someone's up for a game? Am I going to be embarrassed in my car? Sure, you might not be the type to have your shirt unbuttoned to the extent that your medallion and chest hair are clearly and overtly on display, nor may you be wearing your stallion cologne you bought yourself whilst on some incredibly important executive trip in an airport one self-important afternoon. However, when you buy a car like a Porsche, then performance stats may well feature in your thinking when you consider what to buy. So in this video we're going to look at the traffic light dash and a few scenarios to see actually if there's any truth in this YouTube comment on my channel about the man in the 911 and the craven weakling in the Boxster. I think you'll be surprised about some of the results. But we're not just going to look at that one example. In fact, we will look at a number. Well, fact fans, if you've watched my channel before, then you'll know that there's likely a spreadsheet involved. Yes, this video is no different. I have entered into a spreadsheet as many Porsche cars as I can find and have taken it as far back as the 50s. I have found the 0 to 60 times and the quarter mile times for each of these cars and thrown them into a spreadsheet so we can sort them and see how things have changed over the years. And even though it's apples to oranges, what would happen if you pitched up in your car and the man pitched up in his? For fun, I've also added in some non-Porsche cars just so it keeps us on the straight and narrow and we don't get carried away, and also some racing cars just for the lols. So I will show you the 0 to 60 times, but of course what we're interested in is the traffic light dash. So the way we will measure this is the quarter mile time. A quarter of a mile is actually a long way for a traffic light dash, but as it's routinely recorded in performance tests, let's go with that. I find 0 to 60 times are not very interesting. I don't think they tell us much, whereas the time it takes to get across a consistent distance is much more enlightening. Anyway, let's get on with it. I think the ultimate winner here of the quarter mile dash probably won't surprise you, but I do think you'll find it impressive performance from all the cars involved at the faster end of this traffic light dash, especially the road cars. We will get to that later, but let's tackle that post first. The Boxster. Is it really the lily-livered lightweights car driven by Raoul from the salon, or truly the most fun P car for the money with the performance to match? You already know my thoughts about it, as I think they are truly great cars and I couldn't care less what people think of me anyway. But you are at the lights in your 2020 base Boxster and then the man pitches up alongside you. Are you going to teach him a lesson or be left with your tail between your legs and embarrassed red cheeks? Of course, it depends what he turns up in, and he would need to make sure it's something pretty good. The standard Boxster these days can do 0 to 60 in 4 seconds dead, on its way to a quarter mile time of 12.5 seconds. I have to tell you, that's seriously fast. Faster than all the Cayennes and Macans on the market, except the turbo models, and quite some of the Panameras too. But what about the 911? Well, you will see off a 997.2 Carrera and a 991.1 Carrera and a roof RGT. More incredibly, you will also best all 964s, including the 964 Turbo away from the lights, and the 930 Turbo too. I guess that's not much of a surprise given its age, but what if you upgraded into a 718 Boxster S? Well, here's the most interesting stat maybe of the whole video. Your car has about the same performance as the iconic and totally brilliant and desirable Porsche 959. The 959 just about pips you, but my god, it's close. 0.1 of a second close, and that could be the difference between driver performance. In addition to being faster than all the cars the Boxster was faster than, you can also wreak humiliation on the chap that turned up in a 997.1 GT3 RS. All his Macans of any kind, his 993 Turbo and his 996.2 GT3. Come on, that's pretty bloody good, isn't it? If that is what a girl's car looks like, then these are women that I want to know and copy. Moving on from the Boxster question, what about the turbos over the years? Is it true to say that each model is faster than the preceding one? Well, yes, actually. Have a look at this run that Porsche themselves ran with Mark Webber and others. As much as I was rooting for the 996 Turbo, it came where it was entitled to come, I'm afraid. That said, if you arrive at the lights in a 996 Turbo, then you are roughly midway in between the 718 Boxster and Boxster S that we talked about earlier. Still pretty good, but you'd better hope that Raoul doesn't turn up in his Boxster S. What if the man turns up in a bog standard BMW? Let's say a 540i with all-wheel drive. Just as a benchmark and as a luxurious and I know apples to apples comparison, but a fairly rapid car, especially off the mark, you'd think, right? What P car do you need to arrive in to take him down? With a quarter mile time of 13.2 seconds, this is far, far, far away from the top of our list, and actually the same time as a 996.1 Carrera 4. I guess the most comparable car in the Porsche range would be the Panamera, and you'd need just a 2010 Panamera 4S to get the job done. Just. A Panamera GTS would also show him a clean pair of heels, as well as a 2015 Macan Turbo like the one I drove in one of my earlier videos, which I loved, by the way. I'm sorry to say though, if you arrived in a 987 Porsche Boxster S from 2005, then you will be inhaling BMW exhaust fumes, as you will if you arrive in a 964 Porsche RS America, or even the first Porsche Cayenne Turbo from 2003. Before we get to our top 10, let's look across the decades and see how cars have just got faster over time. In this one, I've taken the standard 356 or 911 coupe of the time and stacked them against each other. It really does show, like the turbo shootout video of earlier, that as time goes on, cars get faster. Don't expect to turn up in an older car generally and see off the man. Which brings us very neatly to the top 10 list. I bet you all have your candidates, and I reckon that you'll guess some of the top ones, if not the top ones. To make it interesting though, this is where some of the racing cars come in. I've added in some other exotics too, so you can compare how truly quick you have to be to see off some pretty capable competitors. Firstly though, the top 10 Porsches. Of absolutely no surprise to anyone is the 918 Spyder and 991 GT2 RS with its 690 bhp. Perhaps more surprising that one of only 3 real Porsche supercars isn't even in the top 10, the Carrera GT. A 2020 Porsche 911 C4S is faster than that. But look at the devastating performance of the new 2020 Porsche 911 Turbo S. It's ahead of the 918 when 60 miles an hour comes up, and just 0.1 of a second behind at the quarter mile. Astonishing. However, our king of the Porsche road car sea to shining sea traffic light dash is the Porsche 918 Spyder. I'm pretty certain you all thought this would be up there. Want to see what it looks like against the 991 GT2 RS that I mentioned before? Well, watch this. Yes, it was a 0 to 60 dash rather than a quarter mile, but at least you can see the distance it got ahead. To finish, let's add in racing cars and other exotics, and here's the surprise. Look at the 1978 935. At these levels, beating a Porsche 918 Spyder to the quarter mile by a second is a really big deal. Our winner of winners, though, is the Porsche 919 racing car. Hardly anything that you'll see at the traffic lights, but nevertheless really very fast. Thanks so much for watching. If you're still watching at this end of the video, do please give me a like, as it really helps the channel to grow. Also, if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'd be very glad to have you along for the ride. Otherwise, my best to you and your families. See you soon.